My name is Liam Carter. I'm 34. I live in Boise, Idaho, and 8 years ago, I met the woman who taught me how to break. Before she broke me, I used to think love was like a hiking trail, something you walked until the end with steady boots. But now I know it's a mirror, a lie you hold up to yourself, until all you see is a face you don't recognize. Before the storm, I was a man with quiet rhythms. I worked as an electrician fixing wires that hid behind walls, the way people hide their secrets. Had this corner booth at a diner near the river where I'd eat fried eggs every Saturday morning. Watch the sunrise turn the Boise mountains gold. My sister, Nora, lived 2 hours away in a trailer park with 3 cats, and a voice like a warning bell, always telling me not to trust people who wore their smiles like business cards. But I never listened. I had a heart that gave second chances without asking permission. Sophia came into my life like a gust of wind, wearing boots that crunched gravel and a laugh that made the coffee shop feel like a cathedral. When I first saw her, she was arguing with the barista about the temperature of a latte. And I remember thinking, this woman knows what she wants, which turned out to be true. But not in the way I'd hoped. She had auburn hair and a job managing a startup social media accounts. She told me her parents had died in a car crash when she was 19, which made her cling to me like ivy to a wall. We shared late-night drives on empty highways and spaghetti dinners. And the way she said my name like a prayer made me believe we were building something permanent. Months passed, and I started noticing cuts in the fabric of our world. She'd roll her eyes during my stories about work, or leave my texts unanswered for days. Sometimes she'd get quiet after big fights. I'd begged her to let me move into her apartment so we could stitch the holes. She pointed out that I still let dishes pile up in the sink and forgot to take out the trash, that I talked in my sleep about my ex. I tried to apologize for every speck of dust between us, convinced myself the way she handled my flaws was part of her magic. Then came the night I walked into my sister's kitchen and found the chess account she'd forgotten I even made for her when she was job hunting. I'd helped her choose a username, Red Queen 1986, and a password, I love Sophia 67. Because she said that was the year her parents got married. I scrolled up to see her last login 2 minutes ago. That's when the world cracked open. The next day, I called in sick to work and sat in her closet on the floor smelling pear perfume and resignation. While she left for her shift, I'd saved her laptop while she napped the week prior and smoked a pack of cigarettes as I typed Red Queen 1986 into the login field of a dating site called Heartscape and uploaded a fake profile picture of a woman with silver bangles and a smirk that screamed art school dropout. Therapist messages flooded in from men, taped up sneakers and pickup artists. But one stood out, a man who wrote, "You remind me of a poem I've never read, but wish existed." Sophia had replied, "Maybe we can write it together," with a heart emoji. I learned 3 things in the hours I spent in her digital shadows. She'd been meeting men for 6 months. She described me as sensitive to the point where he overthinks everything in her profile. Looking for section, and every weakness she listed was a photo I'd seen in the mirror. I didn't cry. I went cold like a substation transformer shutting off emergency power. 3 weeks later, I met Elena at the airport. She was Sophia's favorite online handle. I posed as her date in a blue hoodie and sunglasses that made my eyes look like caves. I gave her vanilla ice cream that night and a red tulip when her real date showed up looking like a man who'd come to believe he was a movie protagonist. You should have seen his face when she laughed and said, "I should have known you'd be desperate." He left me a scotch, and Sophia's voice broke in the silence that followed like she'd finally inhaled glass. The next time, couldn't resist. I became Myra, who canceled last minute claiming she couldn't leave her grandmother alone on chemo day. Sophia wrote back, "I completely understand, but I'm so disappointed," with a frowning emoji. I wanted her to taste that disappointment, multiply it across 25 different profiles. My hands shook the first time I created a fake man named Theo who pulled a parka over his face. At the first meetup, she arrived 30 minutes late wearing my favorite yellow dress, talking about how stressed she'd been with all her clients. Theo stared at his coffee like it owed him money while she babbled, and then I saw it. Her shoulders sagging like a deflated raft, walking out of the bookstore alone. Revenge has a rhythm. There's the click of the keyboard when you choose the profile pic, the itch in your fingertips as you type a lie, the thrill when you see them reacting like trained seals. But there's also the acid in your stomach when you realize you've built a shed just to house your rage. Mark, the IT guy, nudged me at work one afternoon and asked if I was okay. I was staring at 3 phone screens, each posing as different women messaging Sophia. He said, "Got a woman in your head again?" And I smiled like normal, even though the lines between hero and villain were blurring. There was Amber, who canceled when she said her best friend was in a broken relationship. The irony had teeth. Sophia cried, tears she'd never shed for our arguments, and confided in Hannah, a fictional influencer, that cheaters just want the chase, not the catch. By the 5th fake date, my dreams had sea monsters instead of skunks and raccoons. One night I stood outside the jewelry store where I'd bought her emerald ring and ghosted a woman who resembled her mother. Sophia crept out at midnight with a man named Kyle, whose wife was away for a conference. Their shadows in the alley were a language I didn't speak anymore. I texted Kyle an anonymous tip. She mentioned you're not circumcised and said it disgusts her. You asked how she knew. He sent 7 venomous questions in 2 minutes. Sophia destroyed his tubes of moisturizer with scissors the next day when he confronted her in her car, but I wasn't lightning fast like I'd imagined. I messed up every time I went for blood. Shannon turned out to be a cop who convicted her ex for stalking. I forgot Sophia abhorred confrontation, and she left a 1-star review for Shannon's needless aggression online. And there was the collapse at the Arboretum when Alina/Kenna/Leela tuddied her tone after Sophia PHTVFED. My new version of I've always believed emotional honesty, surface-level romance. A pastor was lecturing nearby. Sophia wandered off, tears without makeup, and kissed him on the cheek. Heartscape sent me a pink box labeled Verified Authenticity when Sophia tried to log in for the first time since I'd begun. I realized she'd started deleting profiles. I panicked. I made worse mistakes, cars that were too familiar. I started slipping NORAS wax shop filtered light into fake bio. Gwen from accounting said I was quiet lately. Eventually it came to the climax outside the library. Ashley, the 3rd version of the art school woman Sophia, imagined herself to be turned down the wrong corner and saw her perfect self reflected at age 30. Ashley said nothing when Sophia called her manipulative. While Kyle kissed her neck in daylight, Ashley just walked away quietly, but my hands were shaking so bad I dropped the phone near the fountain and spent 3 hours hunting down the charger in freezing water. I broke HBO Max's back then. Not good LFI childhood best friend who relocation had left behind. He saw me the next weekend and said, "Your eyes are full of something wrong." I shouldn't put him in the story, but he let me borrow a shed. He let me install ring lights in company colors on exhibition day. I admit it made me feel power. 4 months into this circus, I asked Ashley if she'd cut onions beside the stove. Inside her head, she was pixeled. On the worst day, I retained an attorney, but he said I had violated privacy laws and would go to court over emotional damages, which made me laugh how she turned a betrayal into my crime. Sophia blocked him eventually. Our final night was the squirrels. I made sure she saw the text preview when I cued "Kyle is here. Enjoy your egos." Theo. Her voice left a Louise Reed receipt. She gathered me close. We danced under neon signs, drawing another infighting crowd. I forgot to play the music. "Why would Kyle message me as Theo?" she whispered in the same perfume. I said nothing, just held her tighter. Every time she went cold, I slipped deeper into the website at midnight. I built Kenna a puppy, but she found me souring a charity gala date before I could plant Marco the single dad activist. She called Marco's friend for confirmation, and Marco called me. I found out plans are fragile. I guess I wanted her to know what it felt like to be watched. The opposite of love. By now, rope scarred my throat. She kept asking about strange activity on her phone, but when the heart starved itself, all it could swallow was cruelty. March 4 at Pier 12. She made Marco beg for forgiveness because his ex had been kinder. I'd had enough. Public breakup. I met her at the Opera House green room where she'd never performed but pretended to watch previews for it on our anniversaries. "Cozy Nelly," she said, finding me like a side character. Jad gave her until Lilac STALKS burnt around April last. I looked into her oval mirror and read quotes from her messages aloud while she screamed and clawed. "It's suspicious he's only interested in a woman who mirrors you. You must have sensed me arriving via the scent of surrender. He tells stories but lacks a compass." She spilled wine and crushed ash over my stable sheets. When she accused me of petty guessing screensavers, I whispered her original password, the one she'd used for everything. Her entrapment began. The last thing she ever asked was how many are there, and I said enough. Not hearing Sophia is easy, but she sips the air around me still. 2 years passed and her emails ep all everything else on the server. The latest one said, "I watched you walk out that night, knew the pieces I'd lose. You won a small war, but who are they now, those women? Do their eyes hold your ghosts?" And I kept typing rows of purple Mr. Masnut during dishwasher repairs in kitchens. Nora wrote a note in her cursive, "Stay away from ficus plants. A vengeful man looks like a storm. A forgiving one looks like a hole. The shed still has 13 unfinished profiles. A odometer carved in pine logs, but the heartbeat claw grows loud. There's something in my blood tuning sharper for the next act." Today I checked his apartment on the sprawl that cameras cost $48 on Amazon, and still her voice sometimes. "What does Amelia mean? Water rotted your childhood fence?" Yes, it was raining when I wrote that. The storm never left either. Act 3, I built trapdoors but forgot they had weight. By June, Sophia had scars from the things I made strangers say. The ring lights in the shed hummed like dental drills. Faux profiles leaked into reality. Kyle's ex started following me to work. Nora left 7 voicemails asking why my knuckles looked like sheared cables. I kept shoveling confetti onto the bonfire. Chose a man who looked like our first landlord, wrinkled skin that sagged over him like canvas walls, and whispered into his texts, "You have his mouth between heart emojis." Sophia texted photos of scorched mountains she'd visited with a trail guide, and captioned, "You deserve a type better than fire." She cursed my reflection in emails fake women left her forever ago. Gwen from accounting found me smearing chili oil on a burner phone in the shop bathroom and said, "Move over." I thought she meant the sink, but her hand grabbed my collar. She reeked of security updates and nostastic gum, said she has twins' birthdays to consider, but she'd still hand me over. I begged her to smell my shirt where I'd spilled Nora's lilac candles. Nothing. The betrayal cleaned like a fresh wound, but the silence after was a wardrobe left in a hallway. Sophia wore my insomnia like Empire music at night. She met Marco at the art co-op where he sculpted vultures from driftwood, and she chalked murals about dandelions growing from battlefield boots. Their shadows curled like Latin alphabets at midnight parties I surveilled through a stolen clinic webcam feed. My cousin from Portland called twice in 3 days, said my laugh was a mosquito net over messages from her cousin now dating in Boise. Forgotten. Acts. The IT guy dropped a noose behind Christmas lights Sophia would have loved. "Can you clean viruses from old heartache?" he asked while plugging my laptop into a scanner that blinked like a defibrillator. 53 profiles had cracked back. Every mouth I made lick her name had become a funeral director's complaint. My sister's no-show on her birthday left a card smudged with unopened jojoba oil and a receipt for plane tickets canceled. Her handwriting, "Go home to your monsters." The pastor Sophia kissed 3 years prior was running for city council. I made his traffic camera footage meet Leela's snide quotes about mercy, but Sophia learned he'd corrected her first. Baked him a casserole with too much paprika. He thanked her publicly. I stood at the back clutching Theo's coat that had strings unraveling from the cuffs like last year's stand. The jeweler's store where I'd bought her ring staged a masculine lens inside their jeweler program. Sophia walked in with Kyle on Valentine's Day and touched cubic zirconias with blunt fingers. She pretended to window shop while his wife ordered ceiling fans online via the store's free Wi-Fi. February rain turned my shed into a carrion nest of half-smiled maps and cracked eggshells. They added vintage limericks to outfits. She murmured, "Myra always hated daisies." He said nothing. I texted Marco's sister as Alina. She claimed you took alimony from his dad. Marco's hand found my face in a mosque parking lot where I'd never followed him before. I fed his eyes the same story I'd fed everyone else. Pain became a taxidermy project pinned to bulletin boards. The storm surge hit November. A cop showed up at my job holding a screenshot of Gavin, 7th fake, mid-laugh with Sophia at a florist seminar. The message read Red Queen's shattered crown. Gavin had a fake beard. The cop noticed. Now he asked if I knew criminal impersonation in Idaho might mean 10 years. My hands bloomed degree blisters from the YouTube replays I'd watched at 2 a.m. Nora visited without cats once. Whispered she saw the pastor's speech in which he wept on air. You taught him to talk like you, she said. He rambles now about peat bogs and wrist slits. You're writing his messages too. I broke teeth flossing air trying to explain. She took the code book I kept under the shed's floorboards and burned it in someone's backyard. When the phone subpoena arrived, Sophia sent me an anonymous cake. 6 layers of jelly oats with frosting saying congratulations on knowing nothing. Hunter Access at yahoo.com had slipped a voice note in her car where she sobs and calls herself a specter. That night, I revisited all her closeted Husqvarna boxes and found logs dated 2015. Inside were bead necklaces I'd never seen and a flash drive filled with selfies where she screamed silently. The shed filled with 17 versions of I lied first when she texted Kyle that he popped a lid on a stranger's windshield. I sent his wife the dashboard video. Sophia called him a gasoline wretch. He started boating in the wrong province with more women who mirrored her. Ash monks outside a yoga studio called her on the wind. You draw your sword when you mean to feed the pigeons. I carved that into the picket fence where we once planted tomatoes. She left a scar on my forehead to match. Act 4, the shovel broke on cheap drywall. February 1st, I peeked into a rival shed Max's brother and found Sophia's thumbprint on a bleach bottle spray nozzle right after she told the fake Alessia she hadn't cried in months. Alessia replied with a drone image of my house chimneys. I dropped the phone into a river on a dare. The shed's ring lights bought me a final profile. Brian. He'd pretend to be vegan but quote mass shooters in invisible ink. I made him text Sophia at 4:17 a.m. Have you seen the bruises where your mirror used to love you? She responded in all caps. Liam, if you're doing this, I'm calling NORA. I froze, then laughed until I tasted copper. Nora's phone number had gone dead since Christmas. Gavin arrived at work with unhitched shoelaces and a cop's indifference, schooled me in privacy laws and data zombies, said Sophia's lawyer was national. Would I survive when the headlines came? Your sister's letter convicting you was sorted. I ate it. I spread the remainder of the noose in Gwen from accounting's inbox. She quit. The pastor lost the election. Marco dyed his hair white and moved to nursing school with Sophia's old cell tags scalded across his chest. She put Rosette S around her lips now. Sent Brian a 5 a.m. audio of a storm she named your mouthpieces. He replied, let's meet. Let's bleed it out. She slipped into that meetup wearing my hiking jacket, the kind that melted in thunderstorms. I stood in Brian's skin, said nothing when she hissed about chainsaws in the shed. In the parking lot, I offered tiny camping scissors from my glove box. She saw them as sleep-deprived or maybe disarming and laughed air that typed ha-ha joke criminal into my synapses. Then she stepped onto gravel and broke the night like porcelain. Her new password recounts a vertime churned against my breastbone. She said, you think pain makes you wiseful? I gave you stronger weapon. I asked for which ones. Her eyes turned into filing cabinets. Read receipts came up as library printouts from 2014, the complete guide to forensic psychiatry and rearview mirrors, data trails made easy. She spent our last year bookmarking pathways to this exact reckoning. Nora texted again, an image of her left hand scarred by burnt maples and hibiscus roots. Caption, she poisoned the ficus and I read deeper than the uploaded date. Behind the ficus was my childhood treehouse. A decoy in that image contained files about my father's depression logs. Sophie had archived them. She spent 2 years turning my family history into weaponized soil. Why? Because I once told her the bedroom window had been closed for 7 months. She saw a loophole. She walked into the shed the week before we ended staring at a photo of my mother in Santa Fe and whispered I could be her, then posted it on Heartscape as a corpse. Winter solstice. Crimson sun bruising the Boise skyline. I dug under the shed floorboard where threads bound Marco's ultrasound scans. Nora's final blow-up email fell out printed on onion paper which only Sophia owned. Words inside. My brother's thumb scrolls dreams about pliers. She wasn't wrong. The shed was my exhale hatch by then, but I started harvesting new tools. Printed FBI door knock survivals, faked left my phone history, sent Brian to confession in Sioux Falls. Sophia ran into Alina nay Ashley at the grocery and realized none were couples, only accomplices. She swiped every receipt across my name in social feeds. Ghost bomber white hat boy king of glass mirrors. I couldn't swipe back. The IT guy's data had rusted all my burner zones. Rain began again. I kept driving past the arbor where she'd once buried my locket beneath a rowan tree. The mud was thick, but her mom's shinbone found mine when I untreed the plastic box. Notes, photos, and until September 2022, things I'd never left her. Bundled receipts from my dynamite show. A crayon drawing of a man with plug socket shoulder blades, and her caption, "My therapist said this is okay." Same purple pencil strokes as when I made heart scrapes on her fever nights. I paused for 7 days, the kind that exist in prison inmate songs, then fed Marco's sister all the glow clouds I'd saved, the seeds. Sophia's fragmented heart text, the ones ringing softer than revenge, said, "Hear your brothers laugh again." The shed still pulsed with power, but now I shaped it different. Black apples inside every package to Kyle. Codes embedded in charity gala roses for Gwen, a Control+W rewrite before the final noose reloaded, then the callback. Sophia dares a final meetup. Hints she's back in the home Scottsdale tundra where her parents died. Brian's texts arrive calm. "Meet me by the burnt hill." She does. In her stomach now is a reservoir, no confession sentenced. She says I made her hollow, but then howling hypocrisy. "You forged their digital hunger, not me." I let the shed's final ring light glow on my palms. Said, "How many Brian names have you eaten tonight?" She spasmed. I kissed the woman who wore MasterCard loyalty in her bra cup for the last date she'd ever meet. She left the package of my letters at the curb, a pulp of rain and stones curdling to bread. I took a gold thread from the lining of everything. One more truth ununloaded from the mouth of the tweet I'd saved for years. Love is cracked glass. The worst part is being the crack. By then I'd burned the grass that fed my wants, walked Norman's tire shop stairs where he handed me keys long forgot, said I looked less like a man, more like a contract waiting to expire. "We all fall," he whispered, "but you keep dying slow." I nodded into brake fluid and saw him differently. His tattoo read, "Sophia saved our daughter," beneath prayer beads I'd once made her customize. The noose needed new materials. On the cusp of Act 5 I heard the pulse again. Louder, began greasing the shed into a key. Rewire. Remember how she smelt under the hatchback if parked by roadkill dusk. The fountain outside Red's Rain Superstore where I'd once proposed in reverse. Amelia Water lies crooked here, Liam. My blood turned to protocol USB decoder. I'd stopped asking when revenge gags the sky. Started watching the single exit on I-15 where someone's headlights would soon gut me. Not her, but the return of every Lysilk dancer we'd raised. It begins where the ropes end. Need to break before I bend. She owes me that much. The mirror remains, but now I mirror her scars even when she's not listed. Not just the eye twitch from the night their father's car clapped asphalt, but her slow unravel of every thread named Liam. The heart beats louder. Sophia warned me about endings back in the salt air and static of that hospital where her panic first lent me surgery sweat. Said storms make louder ghosts when they end. Today my shed hums, not silence this time. A picket fence grove, 1986 files unlocked, and now the photos don't blur. They sharpen when she asks the rain as Ashley, as Marco, as Elena. Tylettery 04, Tylettery 23, she still hides hunting knives inside her notebooks. I installed them there. She meets me at the burnt hill where the trees still wear crow ash. The storm she named your mouthpieces hangs overhead, swollen with attics and wasp drones. Her hiking jacket splits along the zipper, but I see the knife stitching beneath. 27 seams I sewed myself using LinkedIn passwords in invisible ink. She says you came with Brian's lungs, and I shove the USB decoder down her throat. It blinks red. Her teeth snap over the plastic, and for a second she tastes like the pastor's lie-laced sermons. Then her stomach doesn't growl. It hums syncopated. Beats I recognize, my mother's lullaby in Santa Fe, vaporized into radio static for Kyle's wife to find. Sophia spits the decoder into the mud where it decrypts her emails mid-fall. The logs, the taxidermy smiles, the voucher codes for Marco's sister's asthma meds, all scorched into the soil by the candle Nora left sliding into our DMs 9 years ago. I step back. She steps forward. Her thumbprint still molds to the bleach bottle I never saw in Max's shed. Her hand grips my wrist like the night the infernal saw died mid-song, when our fingers knotted around the same dent in the table. That was before Brian, before Alina, before Kyle's semen froze on a USB drive smuggled to his boss's Bernese Mountain Dog. She digs the knife from her notebook. It reflects the rain's X-ray, says you scripted the shoelaces. My pupils dilate at the memory, the coffee stain I never cleaned on Gavin's shirt, the way his eyelid twitched when Sophia called him a gasoline wretch in Fargo's duty-free airport. She carves the shed's floorboard again, not for his scans, not for my sister's canceled dates, for the gold thread. That last filament of her saliva in my code book's spine, now blooming rust like heart valves in a freezer. We cut each other evenly. The storm evaluates each drop of blood, matches it to the HVAC receipts from the florist's seminar. Jab, her blade finds my synonym replacement software. Saints throb where she etched record-server-time into my pancreas. Counter-Strike, my childhood root directory splits her televisation apps like old almonds. She stumbles into ring-light glare yelling, I gave you stronger weapons, specializing cheer, the kind that imprints on bullet casings. I twist her wrist until the knife's serial number surfaces. Read 666, the same from her mother's autopsy under the rowan tree. The shed becomes a seismograph. Every splinter vibrates, document tries. The cop's screenshot drowns in its own neon spotlights, but NORA is here now, cursive inside my skull. She's hired Gwen from accounting's twins to fake finish morphologies in Sophia's alimony transfers. The pastor's lost vote percentage glows around our cheeks like war paint. Marco's nursing diploma reads CRIMETHINK in the UV mismatch. Our wounds harmonize. She growls, you made my sleep a combat zone, and I show her the chainsaw's firmware still whispering her name. Flashback sharps in the updraft. Winter 2017, Santa Fe's final phone call. My mother sobbing over Sophia's mom's shinbone blueprint. Oh, forgive us, the blurred casserole from Kyle's dad. All data metabolizes. The knife returns to my throat. She says, eat Kyle's dashboard. I feed her Marco's funeral program instead. Her laugh writes CAPSLOCK across the shed's exterior. When Brian's ghost appears as vapor, she clots his history at the femto tunnel exit. My index finger snap triggers the webcam heist. Years ago, the night her Empire music narrated the bonfire. Now it blares emergency buzz. Climax churns, I rekey her password. She knows, punches my left hemismaphores, shattering all conversions of Liam into Reed. Her blood sprays smartphone unlock mechanisms on the picket fence. I write for her a final Harry Potter fanfic. Love is cracked glass becomes love is the repair running. She stalks the USB port. I reanimate the IT guy scanner in her veins. She names me Gavin. I screen cap her sarcasm into forensic psychiatry stands. Every fake profile resurrects with cervical spine material. Nolan's tire shop corrodes the skeletons from the ficus. Her knife slips between my ribs and melts like the handset I rigged in the mosque. Her jacket exhausts smoke signals. Oregon license plates crack. We sag into the floorboards, swelling the mud with weathered graph. The shed collapses into a data carillon where our code book burns double-sided. She dies third person. I eat copper until the noose remembers its string. Aftermath greets me with dry creek arthritis. The cop's subpoena lands on my doormat beside Amelia Waters' autographs. I step on Kyle's windshield, cracking laugh. It stays underfoot like pancake batter. The pastor sends a cease and desist hymn. Marco's sister demolishes every embassy with my fake roses. By August, the shed's magma sinks into Sakura fertilizer. I plant no tomatoes, but sometimes their shadows surface during rare firmware, say, 3M clarinet pieces or Guzman's whistleblower keycard at Kyle's master class. I stop shadow detective espergassing implants. Bernstorff Modskis I devoured. Sophia's final scarf grows maples in every hemisphere. The gold thread remains a bullet in the committee's pistol. My sister's new voicemail registers grief as October haze. She's back for resupplying drafts. Now I offer her untranslated single parents' Admiralty logs. She doesn't flinch. Instead, she laminates Kyle's canceled plane ticket and engraves it with the pastor's sob story bullets. The mirror stays. My face etches differently. Each scar rebathes into Sophia's eye twitch. Morning flows through me and breaks in the Red's Rain Superstore fountain. People text me facts about Onanurb theses or Toyota coolant cycles. I forward autocorrects to Marco's nursing school via post-Malone vectors. My pain's not pulp anymore. Its soundproof mason jars, its running lights on a hearse manifest set to music. The final thought crystallizes when Ethan uploads a Marco selfie. The caption pains a vegan's quote in invisible ink. I don't flinch slicing the keyboard. My hands cross themselves into church doors. Rain begins its slow programmable descent. Not gem, but document retrieval. Somewhere 1986 still exhales. Somewhere a cocoa-shaped roots are evaluated under tachycardia data. Sophia warned me gatherings end louder. So tonight I meet Brian's ghost again, not at the burnt hill where everything dies, but Red's Ozark basement, the one with my fatherson's decrypted tears in the ceramic mixer. The resolution lives in her knife. Cleaned, realigned, now fosters lilac saplings where Nora's numbers burnt past Noah's pharmacy glass. I don't plant tomatoes. I plant mirrors that reflect both sides of the thread. Every day I digest anti-emails. Every night burns end with breathable spices. The pastor's defeat recipe climbs through ceilings. Kyle's BWID generates more misinformation than mustard protocols. And in that final segment, the shed becomes a triumvirate. Soil speaks multiple. Sophia's corpse hums through asymptotes with Marco's drills. The USB decoder still pulses in her blackout cake, a chromatic infestation. I sign Harlan's NDA using her ex's wrist bones. The mirror shows me at 3 a.m., pulling registry keys from her basic scripts. My laugh's no longer a mosquito net. It's a drone overlooking Suicide's Point, where every broken 4G tower reads Liam KOVICT not logo. End.